right, now if you've got multiple files here, you can easily understand how one QA person can be writing tests in one file and building out UI maps down here, and you're not going to collide into each other and have a bunch of different issues when you're trying to check things in. I don't think it's really necessary to show this running, but it looks exactly the same as if you had a single UI map. You can't tell the difference at all when you're running it. So I guess a little summary there is, if you're willing to learn how to write a little bit more code here, but you're still more comfortable with recording most of your actions, you're going to be able to do a pretty good job of coded UI testing and doing multiple UI maps, as long as you're just willing to kind of dig in and learn just that little bit of code. Okay, and then one thing I wanted to show here, I want to actually get a failure, and I want to show you just one cool new API feature. So if anybody out there is already doing coded UI maps, these are two of the coolest new features in 2012. There's been quite a number of enhancements made to the the UI test control collection that makes validations much easier. And I think to demonstrate what those are, I'm just going to go and debug this, put a breakpoint, and show you something. Just have to launch a browser, so okay, that went pretty quick, so good. Okay, I should have mentioned. So what's the code doing? Basically, it's launching the browser, navigating to Fabricom. Then I'm saying, go give me all controls that are of type hyperlink here. So give me all the hyperlinks, put them in a collection, control.find matching controls, right? And then here's the new stuff. You got this get names of controls, get values of controls, and get property value. Let's take a look at what those are. The hyperlinks, if I do a show source on the page, they don't have any names. But if there was a name attribute associated with a hyperlink, all we're doing is we're getting a string array of all of the name values. So now you can imagine writing an assertion that says, okay, I expect the hyperlinks to be named ABCD, whatever that is, put it in an expected value, and then compare the two arrays of strings together. So that's pretty cool. So get actual names, get actual values. So here's the values. So if I look at the Fibercam site, I've got a dashboard link, a ticket link, a customer link, so on and so forth. All these blue things over here are all links. So what I've done with that select logic is I've selected them all and populated a collection with what those values are. So now doing an assertion is really easy. I'm not one by one validating a link. I can validate all the links on a given page. So that should be a big time saver. And then finally, what I did here was what I wanted to do an assert on was the inner text property. And if we take a look at what that is, that's the text that's being displayed on the screen rather than the actual URL, right? So now I can go in and say, validate that it's this dashboard and tickets and customers. And I purposely put a mistake in here, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to get a failure. I'm not sure what happened here. This over here is the new Test Explorer. I'm very new to this too, and it's definitely off balance, and I'm not finding my test even failed here, and I'm completely baffled as to why. Here we are. I got a filter on. Whew. All right, get rid of that. Okay, so now we get this failed test here, and what I wanted to show you was if we look at the output, okay, it failed because that's not the one. We'll go with it though. In any case, it failed because I was trying to record some title, but the actual value wasn't what it said. And here's what I wanted to show you. If you go into the qtagent32.config file, and you turn on verbose logging, and I'll give you a link on some directions on how to do that. But if you turn on verbose logging, you'll get this UI action log as an output, and this is really useful for troubleshooting and trying to figure out timing. So basically, what I see here is I can see all the actions that were performed. I can see screen grabs of what was going on, and I can go in and I can even see what control was selected, how it was selected, and so this is going to be very helpful when you're trying to troubleshoot, especially performance type issues and that sort of thing. Really cool. Also cool if the QA person's doing the test, they don't know what the problem is, the coder can get a hold of this thing too. So this should be helpful to them. Having the screen grab right here. Click on that, it comes full size. See exactly what's going on. So those are two of the cooler new features within Coded UI Test. All right, I'm at least 15 minutes behind here, so I'm gonna move on from Coded UI, and the next thing I'm going to talk about is web performance testing. Web performance testing. The absolutely key thing to understand about web performance testing is that this works at the HTTP level. This isn't truly UI validation. And what do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is the way the web performance test works is it sends an HTTP request to the server and it captures the response. Okay, and that's usually just HTML. So you can validate the HTML you get returned back to you, but there's no notion of ever rendering that HTML to make sure it looks correct or anything like that. So the best you can do is inspect the HTML and validate that various attributes are what they should be. Okay, so I think folks used to use web performance tests. They used to be called web tests. I think folks used to use them for automating UI testing on web applications, and that's okay, but it's not nearly as good, I don't think, as coded UI tests. So my recommendation moving forward is when you're doing UI testing, favor coded UI tests over web performance tests. Now, if you've got a bunch of web performance tests that exist already, and you're using them to do UI testing, that's fine. You can go ahead and keep doing that. It's not bad, but there's a few weaknesses in it. And so some of those weaknesses are that you're not actually testing the UI interaction. There's no JavaScript firing or anything like that. So if you make a request to the server responds with some HTML, JavaScript fires and it changes the HTML and adds some classes or styling or whatever it does, you're not going to be able to validate that. So that's one definite weakness. The other place you can't use the web performance test is in non-HTTP scenarios. If you've got a client server and they're not using HTTP to communicate, you can't use a web performance test. Only when you're doing HTTP.